What if I told you the worst thing that ever happened to you wasn't meant to break you, but to awaken you? That betrayal, that silence, that moment when everything fell apart. It wasn't chaos, it was initiation. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The pain you carry isn't just a wound, it's a map. And if you follow it with open eyes, it leads straight to your power. Because here's the truth no one wants to hear. The people who hurt you only found where you left your boundaries unguarded. But that ends now. You are not broken. You are being forged. And this version of you, the one that no longer begs, no longer explains, no longer lets the world define your worth, is the one they'll never forget and never control again. Right now, you stand at a silent fork in the road. One path loops you back into the pain. The other turns you into the man who no longer bleeds, for people who don't care if you heal. So choose. Before we begin, like this video if you're done being hurt by the same patterns. Subscribe if you're ready to reclaim your mind, and comment below. I control my emotions, not the world. Number 1. Escape emotional pain. Forget it until you've faced your shadow. If you think escaping emotional pain means staying calm, avoiding conflict, or pretending you're healed, forget it. You're wrong. Pain isn't conquered by building walls or numbing out. It's only conquered by confrontation, and not with the world, but with yourself. This message isn't for comfort seekers. This is for those ready to face the battlefield within, the ones who refuse to let their emotions be hijacked by rejection, ghosting, betrayal, or shame. It's for the emotional warriors, not the emotional escape artists, because real strength doesn't come from pretending to be fine. It comes from integrating the broken parts you've been trying to hide. Carl Jung didn't teach people to overcome pain by running from it. He taught that true transformation requires walking straight into the fire of your past, of your fears, of your unmet needs. Jung's philosophy isn't about suppression, it's about integration, the act of turning and facing the shadow, the disowned parts of yourself, and making them conscious. Until you do, pain rules your life in silence. It chooses your relationships. It decides your reactions. It writes your story. And here's the hard truth. Most of your suffering doesn't come from what people do to you. It comes from the wounds you haven't healed inside. When someone criticizes you and you collapse, when someone pulls away and you chase, it's not them causing the pain. It's your inner child screaming through your adult body. It's the unhealed echo of past abandonment, failure, or humiliation rising like a wave. People try to be strong by disconnecting, by acting unbothered. But numbness isn't strength. It's paralysis. Strength is the man or woman who looks into the mirror of their triggers and says, "You no longer control me. I see you. I understand you. But you don't run my life." This is where the Stoic mind meets Jung's depth. A Stoic doesn't reject pain. They study it. They strip it of power by understanding that emotion is a reaction to interpretation. You suffer not because she left or because they judged you. You suffer because you believe it means something about your worth. That is the chain, and your mind is the key. True emotional freedom isn't found in detachment, but in depth. It's the courage to explore the caverns of your psyche and say, "This is where my fear lives. This is where my need to be chosen comes from." Because once you name your pain, it starts to lose its power. You can't love fully, lead clearly, or live freely until you've faced yourself. Until you stop blaming the world and start mastering your inner reaction to it. The battlefield is internal. The enemy isn't your ex, your boss, or your past. It's your unawareness. So, stop asking how to avoid pain. Start asking what it's trying to show you. You won't reach peace by escaping conflict. You'll reach it by understanding its roots. Pain is not your enemy. It's your map. Now, write in the comments, I face my pain. I don't flee from it. Number 2, the enemy is within pain. Doesn't come from others. It comes from your unhealed wounds. If you still believe that your suffering is caused by others, by their betrayal, rejection, or neglect, then you're still asleep. Wake up. Pain doesn't begin with them. It begins with what's already inside you, waiting to be triggered. This isn't an easy truth to accept, but it's the one that liberates you. People will lie. They will walk away. They will disappoint, but none of it can destroy you, unless there's a wound already within you that believes you deserved it. Carl Jung understood this when he said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Your power does not lie in controlling how the world treats you. It lies in how deeply you understand the stories inside you that interpret the world's behavior. You think you're angry because someone disrespected you, but the real source of that anger might be an unresolved belief that you've never been enough. You think your heartbreak is about the person who left, but what truly hurts is the invisible thread of abandonment you've carried since childhood, now pulled tight by the present moment. That's why pain repeats. That's why the same wounds resurface with different faces, because the world doesn't cause your pain, it awakens it. Every emotional reaction is a mirror, reflecting something hidden inside. Until you understand that, you'll keep rearranging the furniture while the fire burns under the floor. This is where Stoicism meets depth psychology. A Stoic doesn't control the world. They control the meaning they assign to it. They don't waste energy on what can't be changed. They focus on what can, their inner state. Suffering is not born from the event itself, but from the interpretation you attach to it. The Stoic sees this clearly. They do not run from emotion. They reframe it. Your wound tells you that if you're good enough, people won't leave. That if you give enough, you won't be abandoned. But these are illusions. You're not here to control the actions of others. You're here to reclaim the self that was broken trying to do so. It's time to stop asking, why did they do this to me, and start asking, why did this affect me so deeply? That's the question that opens the vault. That's the question that cracks the illusion of control. And that's the beginning of power. When you make your inner world conscious, your memories, your buried shame, your silent fears, you strip external events of their ability to define you. You stop living in reaction. You begin living with presence. And in love, you no longer attract people who reflect your damage. You begin attracting those who resonate with your healing, because your self-worth no longer begs to be proven. It radiates from your integration. Now, comment below. My wounds don't define me. My awareness does. Number 3. You won't become emotionally strong by hiding. Only integration makes you unshakable. You think you're protecting yourself by staying guarded. You think emotional strength is found in being cold, distant, or indifferent. But let me tell you the truth. That's not strength. That's fear in disguise. If you've built walls to keep pain out, you've also trapped yourself inside. You can't heal behind emotional armor. You can't become powerful by pretending not to care. According to Carl Jung, real strength doesn't come from repression. It comes from integration. That means facing your insecurity, your rage, your heartbreak, and making peace with it. Integration isn't poetic. It's brutal. It means sitting with the very emotions you were taught to hide. It means recognizing that your coolness is actually anxiety dressed in apathy. It means realizing that your detachment is not a sign of power, but a symptom of unprocessed pain. And here's where it gets harder. Integration demands that you drop the act, remove the mask, and meet your shadow like an equal. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of uniting all parts of the self, the light and the dark, the confident and the ashamed, the brave and the broken, into one whole human being. Without this process, you live split in two, one part performing for the world, the other drowning in silence. But when you integrate, you become clear. You no longer need to defend against your pain. You learn to listen to it, and that's when something profound happens. You stop reacting. You stop being triggered. You gain the space between stimulus and response. And that space is where your freedom lives. This is where Stoic resilience intersects Jungian depth. A Stoic isn't emotionless. They're deeply aware. They feel everything, but they don't obey every feeling. Why? Because they've mapped their own shadow. They've trained themselves not by running from emotion, but by walking straight through it with self-control and acceptance. So, stop clinging to strategies of avoidance. Being unavailable into the solution. Being unreachable only means you're unreachable even to yourself. Emotional power is the ability to remain fully present with your pain and still act with intention. To love from wholeness, not from need. To speak from clarity, not from fear. People will feel that in you. When you've integrated, your presence changes. You no longer need approval to feel valid. You no longer chase love that costs you your peace. Instead, you attract what aligns. You magnetize what respects your depth, because you respect it first. Emotional strength isn't defense, it's acceptance. And when you've faced your own shadow, no one can use it against you. Now, write in the comments, I don't hide from my shadow, I integrate it. Number 4, suffering isn't your enemy. It's the doorway to your inner power. You've been taught to run from pain, to treat suffering as a threat. But what if I told you that your greatest strength is hiding right behind the thing you fear the most? Forget the idea that healing means never hurting. Pain doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're being invited. Carl Jung described suffering as the woman in black who knocks at your door. Most slam it shut in her face. But Jung warned, if you ignore her, she waits. If you turn her away, she returns stronger. But if you welcome her in, if you sit with your suffering, something sacred begins, because suffering isn't random. It appears when your inner life is at war. One part of you wants to grow, to love, to move forward. Another part clings to old habits, familiar pain, false security. That's the tension, and it hurts because your soul is pulling in two directions. Until you choose, suffering is the heat of transformation. It is death and rebirth. You can't become who you were meant to be while clinging to what no longer serves you. And you don't become powerful by avoiding your pain. You become powerful by giving it meaning. That's the Stoic path too. A Stoic doesn't beg the universe for ease. They meet hardship with courage, because they know that character is forged, not gifted. When something wounds you, the question isn't, how do I escape this? But what part of me needs to die so something stronger can be born? Look deeper. The pain you feel after a breakup isn't about the other person. It's about the version of you that depended on them for identity. That pain is sacred. It's trying to free you from illusions, to separate your essence from your attachments. You lose the fantasy so you can discover the truth. But that process isn't glamorous. You'll feel like you're falling apart. That's not failure. It's shedding. You're being stripped of everything that isn't real. Every lie you believed about yourself, every role you played to feel loved, every mask that hid your fear of abandonment. And when it's done, what's left is you, the real you, not the version shaped by trauma or people-pleasing, but the one forged in fire, rooted in truth, immovable. That's why suffering is not punishment, it's purification. When you face it directly, you become untouchable, not because life gets easier, but because you've become too deep to be shaken by shallow things. You stop being reactive, you stop being controlled by pain. You walk with it, knowing it can no longer own you. Now, write in the comments, I don't resist pain, I rise through it. Number 5. Individuation. Becoming who you truly are is the ultimate freedom. You can pretend to be healed. You can wear confidence like armor, recite affirmations, even find success. But if you haven't faced your shadow, if you haven't looked your fear, shame, and rage in the eye, you're not whole, you're performing. Carl Jung called the journey toward becoming whole individuation, not perfection, but integration. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And make no mistake, this isn't a gentle process. It's a dismantling. It's the destruction of your persona, the mask you built to survive. Individuation is the choice to stop betraying yourself just to be accepted, to stop chasing love that requires self-erasure. It's standing in front of the mirror with every flaw, every fear, every contradiction, and saying, "This is me." And in that moment, you stop needing to prove anything to anyone. Here's the paradox. When you accept your darkness, it loses control over you. When you embrace your wounds, no one can weaponize them. You become emotionally bulletproof, not because you've hardened, but because you've healed. This is why true power doesn't shout. It doesn't seek revenge. It knows itself. The Stoic lives this truth too. They aren't detached because they don't care. They're detached because they no longer depend on external validation. Their peace isn't built on being liked. It's built on alignment, on self-respect, on the quiet certainty that they are whole, even in solitude. And when it comes to love, everything changes. You stop attracting chaos. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy, because when you're whole, you no longer seek someone to complete you. You seek someone to grow with you. You don't love from desperation. You love from depth. But don't expect applause. Individuation makes you hard to manipulate, and that threatens those who rely on your compliance. You will lose people, but you will gain yourself. You'll lose comfort, but find clarity. And that trade is worth everything. Because when you become who you truly are, you step into your own authority. You stop reacting. You start choosing. You stop chasing. You start attracting. This is the work most people avoid, but it's the only work that matters. So, ask yourself, are you living as a persona or as a person? Are you performing for love, or are you grounded in it? Because freedom doesn't come from escape. It comes from embodiment. Now, comment below. I choose to become whole, not obedient. Number 6. Consciousness is the real shield, not distance, not defense. If you think avoiding pain means building higher walls or cutting people off, you're missing the point. The real protection in life isn't disconnection. It's consciousness. The sharper your awareness, the stronger your peace. The more clearly you see yourself, the less power anyone has over you. Emotional invincibility doesn't come from feeling nothing. It comes from understanding everything. Carl Jung taught that until you bring the unconscious into consciousness, It will rule your life and you'll call it fate. In other words, your triggers, your reactions, your pain points, if you don't examine them, they'll keep scripting your life while you think it's all just bad luck. That's why people repeat the same toxic patterns. Why the same type of partner shows up again and again. It's not a curse, it's unconsciousness. You're not cursed. You're just unaware of the scripts running in your mind, the arguments, the anxiety, the overthinking. It's not about now. It's about something much older, buried deeper. But once you begin to look inward with courage, everything shifts. You see where the fear lives. You recognize the need for approval. You spot the hidden resentment, the guilt, the wounds passed down through generations. And suddenly, the world outside loses its grip on you. That one text doesn't ruin your day. That one insult doesn't shatter your self-worth, because your perception has changed. You're no longer reacting. You're observing. You're no longer drowning in emotion. You're choosing your response. This is the Stoic path as well. Stoicism isn't about being numb. It's about being awake. It's about using reason as a compass, not emotion as a storm. The Stoic doesn't fight the world. They understand themselves so thoroughly that no chaos can enter uninvited. And when it does, they remain calm, not because it's easy, but because they've trained for it. When you live with awareness, you begin to predict your own reactions. You recognize when your anger is disproportionate, when your sadness is not about this moment but an echo of a past you've avoided, and that recognition frees you. You still feel, you still hurt, but you don't collapse, you don't spiral, because your strength doesn't come from suppression, it comes from sight. Consciousness becomes your shield, not to block love, but to filter noise, not to protect your ego, but to defend your peace. It's the clarity that helps you love wisely, speak truthfully, and walk away with dignity when something no longer honors your growth. You become a grounded presence, and grounded presence is magnetic. It draws those who are also awake, also aware, and repels those who feed off confusion, drama, and control. This is your shield, not coldness, not retreat. Clarity. Now, write in the comments, my clarity protects my peace. Number 7. Wholeness is the real armor, live from conscious integration, not fear. You've been taught to protect yourself with silence, walls, detachment. But that isn't wholeness. That's survival. And survival isn't enough. Not if you want to live with freedom, depth, and power. Real protection doesn't come from pretending you don't feel. It comes from feeling everything and still choosing peace. It comes from no longer needing others to approve your worth, define your story, or validate your pain. Carl Jung didn't teach us to harden. He taught us to integrate. And through that integration, we become unshakable. This is your invitation to stop building barriers and start building awareness. The persona, the version of you that exists to please, to perform, to avoid rejection, is not your protector. It's your prison. The more you wear it, the more disconnected you become, disconnected from your intuition, your truth, your boundaries. And when life hits, and it always does, you find yourself fragile, because the mask was never designed to withstand pain. Only you were. Wholeness begins the moment you stop asking, how do I stop hurting, and start asking, what is this pain trying to reveal? Because that's where emotional sovereignty lives, not in invincibility, but in radical self-honesty. When you know your fears, they can't be used against you. When you own your darkness, no one can shame you into submission. And this is the Stoics' wisdom. 2. A Stoic doesn't numb themselves to reality. They prepare themselves for it. They know storms will come, and they train the mind, the emotions, and the spirit to remain rooted in love, in chaos, in disappointment. They are not indifferent. They are anchored. So stop seeking safety and avoidance. You don't need to become untouchable. You need to become integrated. That's where real confidence lives. Not in performance, but in presence. You walk into rooms differently when you're not performing. You attract love differently when you're not seeking to be completed. And the relationships you build from that space, they're no longer built on projections or unmet needs. They're rooted in mutual clarity, respect, truth. You no longer attract saviors or chasers. You attract mirrors. The work is hard. You will lose the familiar. You may even lose people who only loved the version of you that needed saving. But what you gain is worth every tear. Your clarity, your strength, your peace. So ask yourself, am I still living to avoid pain? Or am I now ready to be fully me, even when it's misunderstood? Because this isn't about never being hurt again. It's about no longer being ruled by that hurt. Now, comment below. I choose consciousness over protection. I live from wholeness. You came here carrying pain, maybe even shame, thinking you were too broken to be whole again. But now you see it. That pain didn't destroy you. It purified you. You no longer need to chase people to feel seen. You no longer hand over your peace for temporary validation. You've learned to sit with the silence, face the shadow, and walk through fire without flinching. And from now on, nothing can break you, because you no longer abandon yourself to be loved. Carl Jung taught us, who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. And you've awakened to your worth, to your strength, to the fact that no one can hurt you again unless you give them the power. So if this message hit your soul, like this video, subscribe to continue building unshakable clarity, and comment below, I am unstoppable. Stay grounded, stay sharp. You are the storm they can't predict anymore.